Hi, my name is Charlotte, and this channel is about my attempt to become moderately competent at drawing. In this video, I'm going to be showing you Sketchbook 4. I know not everybody likes the long and talkative sketchbook tours, so I also made one which is just a few minutes long and is set to music. You can watch that instead. It'll be the first link in the description box down below. This video, I'm going to talk through every page of it. The actual physical sketchbook before I start is the Seawhite of Brighton 25 by 19 centimeter sketchbook. It's about halfway between A4 and A5. I liked it. I did find it a little bit too big, and I also broke the spine before I was even 2/3 of the way through, which seems to me pretty typical for Seawhite sketchbooks. I will say they're a very affordable option here in the UK. These are not super high quality, but I do really like the paper, which is ultra white and smooth, which are two things that I like about sketchbooks. So getting started, I had heard this wisdom like, don't make your first page really interesting or pretty. And I had done that in my previous sketchbook, and then I really hated looking at this ugly sketchbook page every time I opened it. So this time I went the other route and I just copied straightforwardly this bookplate from a late 19th century French book that I found on the website of the French Library, the French National Library. So here is the original, and here is mine. I have really enjoyed having this in the front of my sketchbook, and I don't regret it for a second having a pretty first sketchbook page, even though obviously it's not my own work really. And this is just a bunch of stickers. There are a lot of animals in this sketchbook. So I started out drawing cats, and I also drew goats. And if you're thinking goats is kind of an odd subject, this is because I was using a prompt provided by Simone Grunwald. She goes by Schmo Draws on social media. And I mentioned this in my last sketchbook tour. She has a weekly newsletter, or I think bi-weekly at the moment, that she sends out where she includes just a handful of references on a particular topic. What I really appreciate about this is that she also sends out like her sketch page from the previous week. And what I really like about that is, as someone who's still learning, I really like seeing how somebody more skilled and experienced than me has dealt with the same references. And it really helps give me some pointers on how I can improve. So I did this page of goats, and then I would look at her page of goats the following week and see what things she had done differently and what things I could improve on. Some more cats, and this is another Schmo Draws. It's a bit faint, I'm afraid, for some reason. I was using this very light colored pencil. This is teacups and teapots. This is just how artists have stylized cats that I was trying to just copy and see if I could see any similarities. And then I tried to do a little bit more stylization myself. And the same here, trying to stylize cats with these kind of rounded leg with no real feet look to them. And also some chickens. This is a Simone Grunwald set of prompts. So one of my goals for this sketchbook was to do more color. And so I decided I would take some of those chicken drawings and I would try to add some color to them. So this is a range of different things, a lot of Ohu colors and so on. And these ones I think are mostly acrylic marker, these two for sure. This I was just playing around with using different backgrounds and adding Neocolor ones on top. Neocolor ones are wax crayons. And this was the same, using a colored background, using tempera paint sticks, and then adding Neocolor crayons over the top. None of these are terribly successful. They're really interesting to try, and it's something that I do want to come back to. So this is just my new box of Neocolor ones that I had been swatching and then playing with. So there's actually a really big gap, or I hadn't done very many pages from when this sketchbook started at the beginning of October until early or mid-December, in fact. And then I went to London, and I was at a very boring appointment early the next morning. So I was in this hotel in a very kind of not a very interesting area in December when it was cold and dark really early. And I ended up just staying in the hotel and sketching most of the evening and did these 2 pages. It didn't take me all that long. And this was one of those moments where I was like, well, maybe I could just do this every day. Maybe I could spend a couple of hours doing this. So the next night I was actually stuck on a train forever because of the train system here in the UK. But I came back the following day, and I had this idea that I would make these pages that were sort of collages of different things that I was interested in. So I drew like a cat and an eye study and a hand study and a figure. And then I did some like architectural drawings and some interior drawings based on some references. And this was all really interesting, but this was also like hugely time consuming. Like this spread took me a really long time and I couldn't imagine doing it all that frequently. And in fact, I only did it one more night. So I did it twice. And then I was like, no, this is just too time consuming. I do like these hands though. And so after that, what I started doing was just doing 2 separate pages. And that took a lot less time somehow, even though I wasn't actually drawing all that much less. I wasn't also trying to like design the page or anything. So I drew some more houses and there's a lot of hands in this sketchbook, and that's because I've really been trying to learn to draw hands. I'm going to put my first page of hands that I tried pretty recently. I want to say, I'll have to look it up when I actually started trying to learn to draw hands, but I feel like there's a huge improvement between those originals and these, and I particularly like this one and this one. And some of the pages are more or less successful, but I have really tried to put in a lot of consistent effort into drawing hands. And this was some ideas for a birthday card from my mom, which is in January, which I ended up never doing because I could never find a composition for the card that I really liked. But for some reason, I really enjoyed drawing these cars. And this is a little character for a comic. You'll see more of that later on. And because I enjoyed drawing cars enjoyed drawing chairs, the next day I drew some more. And then this was some more ideas for that card, trying to figure out how I could draw this van. And for some reason then got into drawing rabbits. And there were a lot of rodents from this point on in this sketchbook. So more rabbits, a stylized rabbit, some very unsuccessful chairs. This was a kind of paper craft idea from Sophie McPike. I was part of her Patreon at the time, and she had this kind of challenge to do these flowers, cutout flowers, where you kept both the negative and the positive design. And I really liked how these buds came out, but not how the flowers, which just kind of looked like an undifferentiated blob. So I tried this a couple more times, as you'll see. Some more chickens. I got some Ecoline markers for my birthday, and I was just swatching them. And I also bought at around the same time the Diamine ink vent calendar, which is like you get these little bottles of ink. And this was really fun, but I have to say it's quite expensive, and I would rather spend that money getting individual bottles of colors I definitely like, rather than this kind of like mismatch of things that I don't like and scented ones, which are vile and cannot recommend. And then we're back to rodents. So more rabbits, and because I was looking at a lot of photos of rabbits, Pinterest kept offering me chinchillas. So because they were so round, I couldn't resist drawing some of these sort of orbular chinchillas. Here's another attempt at that cutout thing, but I didn't like how kind of weirdly geometric the leaves ended up looking and how attached to the flowers they were. So I didn't really like that one either. Some more attempt at color ribbons. And this was my final attempt at that cutout art. And this one I felt like I kind of captured some of the things I wanted. The separate leaves, the more complicated flower outline, and the bud. I wish the bud was a little smaller, but I kind of liked how the positive one came out, but I made a mess and I used too dark a color behind this paper, and it ended up, not looking as good as I'd hoped it did. But I drew some more flowers anyway, and I'm back to hands. This hand model, had the most oddly geometric thumb. Like, that's not stylization. That's pretty much what it looked like. But I really like this one. I was looking at some studies of different media that I wanted to practice using. I really like these by, I think her name is pronounced Jaegers, Liana Jaegers. And she does these really minimalist colored pencil art that I really admire. So I just did some little studies of her work, and I was trying to think about how I could do the same without like literally copying her work, but haven't really gotten there yet. Some herons, because I saw one in the field opposite my house. More rabbits. I think we're getting close to the end of rabbits. This page I'm not going to show because it was a Christmas collage with some photos of my family. Here's how some other people stylized rabbits, and no, I was not finished rabbits. Here are some more. And a capybara, or a group of capybara. I don't know what the collective noun for capybara is, but whatever it is, here's one of them. Some more hands. These were less successful. I was trying to do a lot more foreshortened views, so it receding into the distance, and I find that really difficult. I think this is my only page of notes. If you've watched any of my previous sketchbook tours, you know I had this battle not to take notes, but I think this is the only one that made it in here. some more squirrels. Okay, so this is Burb Fest. So this is a January drawing challenge hosted by Monkey Mintaka, I believe is her artist name. And she does really beautiful bird art. And I tried to follow her prompts. And I was trying to use this much more kind of sketchy, improvised coloring style, and I hated it. So I did 2 pages of it and I was like, no, these are all terrible. These look like a 7-year-old did them. So I ended up redrawing everything. So I have all of the birds drawn. And I was like, well, how can I put color on when I'm sort of struggling? And I ended up making a little digital art zine of them all, which I had colored digitally. And here also is the digital kind of complete digital art that I did. And even that wasn't very satisfactory, and it really kind of woke me up to the fact that I'm really going to need to work on how I want to color, because I don't like this and I haven't got any good real alternatives yet. So this is just the last of the birds that I had redrawn from that original page. So that's that original bird. Some half-timbered houses. For some reason I was drawing on tone paper that day. I was doing the Proco perspective course, and this just ended up being some notes that I wanted to stick in somewhere. Some more hands, again, not as successful as some of the others. And around this time, I started to think a lot more about this little story I had about this robot. And I designed this robot a very long time ago now, like 5 years ago. He was just a by chance, and I was trying to draw, I was doing some sort of character design reading, and I was trying to draw him in more dynamic poses, so like moving forward, slumping over, that kind of thing, pulling things. And it set me off down a path of thinking about this little robot story. So I did some little thumbnails, and I'm going to come back to that in a few pages' time. This is some more of that perspective course that I was doing. These are just some optical illusions, and these are some studies of artists who use isometric perspective. And all I was trying to do was use this graph paper to block out exactly what they were doing and try and like figure out how they were using that perspective. I do some octopi, and I don't know why. It says on the page preparation for character design, but I never drew an octopus character, so I don't remember what that was about. Some character posing. Some more interiors. I think this was Cozy Book Nooks was the thing that I was looking for, and a whole bunch of cats to go with it. I really like this cat. I never do the eyes right. There's something about cat eyes which is eluding me. And then this was another character design exercise where you took like a toy, and here's a picture of the toy. And then you kind of tried to morph it into something that you liked and put it in some action poses. I ended up with this little monster. I really like him, but I realized later he basically looks like the Gruffalo. So you know, I didn't consciously think of the Gruffalo while I was drawing him, but obviously the Gruffalo was in my mind's eye because it looks very like him. More hands, trying to do small hands. And then there was this post on Reddit. If you're on Reddit at all, you probably saw it because it was on the front page for days. There's a woman who had sort of inadvertently crocheted herself a toddler-sized mushroom guy. And I ended up drawing him and really, really thought it was so cute, so I had to draw it. And I ended up deciding that the monster from a few pages ago was obviously his sworn enemy, so he's running after it. And I ended up, I think I did one more page of this. This was another one, which was just like a giraffe toy, and then I was trying to make it look more like real and movable, not really very successfully. And this is my last day drawing the mushroom guy, and I was like drawing real mushrooms and then imagining the mushrooms sort of in a row sleeping. That was how they were spending the day, and then at night they would kind of come alive. And I actually colored this digitally, so I'll put that on screen as well, so you can see all my little mushrooms and monsters that I did that week. And this was going back to my robot story briefly. Again, I'm going to come back to that in some detail shortly. Some more character design stuff, just doing sort of casual posing, and then sort of more action poses, trying to make things more exaggerated, like how somebody's falling over or somebody's carrying something, making it look like it's really heavy, that kind of thing. More of the same, some people in swimming suits, and more of that like exaggerated walking, marching type of thing. And this is where we get into the little robot. So I had done a class by I think Victoria Yang is her name. It's a really great class. If you have any interest at all in comics, I really recommend it. I don't really know anything about comics. I'm not a comics reader, but it really got me thinking about, could I turn my little robot story into an actual little comic? So over the next many pages, I did first like small versions and then like full page versions of each page of this story of this little robot. And I won't go into it because I am still working on it. And it's something I actively want to finish. And I have only inked one page, which is this one. And I haven't colored anything yet because I'm still trying to kind of figure that out. But at some point, I will show you my robot comic. And then I was drawing some fish, and this was another attempt at stylization. And this was something that was on Loish's page, Patreon. So really enjoyed that. And then, for the usual reasons, I took a 2.5-month break off drawing altogether. So I didn't pick up a pencil to draw from the 13th of February to the 1st of May. And this is all the usual reasons. I got sick, life got really busy, some other things happened, and this happens to me a lot. It's not ideal. Like, I'm not recommending this to anybody, but I think if you're an adult learner like I am, sometimes just life gets in the way of following up on your hobbies, and this was one of those times. So I came back and I drew this sort of random selection of things off Pinterest. It was just like what was on my Pinterest page that day, which was like a dog, a toy in the shape of a wooden toy in the shape of a bakery is what I'm trying to say, but the toy itself is the shape of a loaf of bread, and then a pile of wooden pegs. And that was what I drew. But then I was right back to it. So that was like the 1st, and then on the 4th, I was back to draw a whole bunch of feet. I do enjoy drawing feet for some reason. I find it really enjoyable. I don't have a foot fetish, so I don't really know. And this was just some experimentation. And then this is my thumbnail image. I'm going to admit, first of all, that this layout is 100% copied from Jess Karp. She's somebody here on YouTube whose sketchbooks I just admire so much. She does really beautiful kind of art book sketchbooks where every page is perfect and everything's amazing. And she is, of course, a professional artist. I always really admire her sketchbook layout. And so when I had drawn these two hands, I was like, well, you know, I could carry on and fill the page up in my normal way, or I could do this kind of semicircle, and wouldn't that be interesting? And then I struggled through. I will say this is probably the best hand that I've drawn that isn't just a straightforward study of somebody else's work. So I like this page. I'm glad that it's interesting. I kind of wish that I hadn't so blatantly copied Jess Karp, but there you go. I did a class on Domestika about sort of coloring landscapes. And like I said, I am really concerned with this kind of problem of coloring the work that I'm doing at the moment. So I followed this class, and then I was just kind of studying a couple of, it's a colored pencil class, or it's a mixed media class really, but I wanted to focus on colored pencil. And this artist I was copying, and unfortunately I didn't get either of the names of these two people, but this is their work. And I was just copying it, trying to understand their process and the order in which they must have done things in order to achieve a sort of, obviously better than mine, but like an outcome that looked like this. And then I was just back to doing Schmo Draws prompts pretty regularly. So this is, I think, just paths in the forest was the prompt, and then little food trucks. This is 15 birds in 15 minutes. So really quick sketching little birds in straight into ink. Some shoes. This is thinking about doing my own outside, my own landscape based on that course that I had done. So I was just looking at putting different colors in marker behind my colored pencil approach and what difference it made and what the final result kind of looked like, because I wanted to have this view. I'll actually put my photo on screen. This is my photo from a place called, oh, I don't remember if I can remember what it's called. Budworth Hall, I think, down in Staffordshire. It's in Staffordshire anyway. Biddulph Hall, that's it. I took this photo here, and I wanted to try and draw it, and half the trees are in shadow and half the trees are in the light. And I was trying to find a way to show that in this kind of more exaggerated style. I'm not looking to do realism. This is just a sort of failed watercolor attempt. This paper is not good with watercolor. It goes really blobby and horrible. And every attempt I made to fix this kind of made it worse, unfortunately. Some more thumbnails for this. This is just my back garden on a particularly sunny day. I was sat outside and thought I would draw it. I wish I had done many things differently. Like, I wish I had done more detail in my plants. I wish I had drawn more in the background. Like, there should be a big tree here and a telegraph pole and stuff, but I did not do it. And I wish I had done that. I wish I hadn't put the sky like that. But other than that, I was actually pretty happy. This is one of the first few times when I actually work right across the page. And I was really pleased with that. I thought it turned out really well. So you'll probably see more of me doing that. Even though this is not a good drawing, I enjoyed doing it across the page, is what I'm trying to say. More hands. I liked these two. They took me forever, though. I was just really struggling with them. Some days I just really hard, and I draw these things that don't look like hands at all, but those ones came out okay, nothing else. This is a study of another colored pencil artist called Anne Laval. It did not turn out well at all, and I was trying to understand why in writing. And because I'd really struggled on this page, I ended up doing this little Skillshare course, which was really easy. This is by Anne Marwin, who's really nice. She does a lot of really nice little sketchbook type courses on Skillshare, and here on YouTube I'll link her down below. But if you're ever looking for kind of an easy, loose kind of activity, she always has loads of them on her various accounts. And this was just some little things. This was, I think, an Emma Jane Lefebvre YouTube video. I was just painting along with her. And then for some reason, God knows why, I decided I needed to learn to draw horses. So what I can tell you from this is that horses are really difficult. I was just, you can see from just the amount of erasing that went on, how difficult I was finding this. But I did manage to somewhat draw some horses. This is just the most ridiculous thing ever. So I had made this paper, which is like multicolored with circles on it, and I was trying to find a way to use it. And I was also, by chance, saw this website full of Matisse's collages, or he did these kind of cut paper art pieces. And so I kind of took his shapes and tried to make something of myself. Matisse is rightly very famous for these, but mine are just basically like me going, oh, this is a nice shape. These are nice colors. I'm sure his were a little bit more thought out than that, but I did enjoy doing it. It was really kind of low key. This is just some notes and thumbnails. This is another paper that I made that I couldn't find a use for, and then just various swatches. And that's the end of Sketchbook 4. So I really enjoyed working through this. Obviously, there was a really big gap in the middle, and I always wish I were more consistent with my art, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. So I was happy to get to the end of this and move on to the next one. As far as the sketchbook is concerned, I really liked it. I found it a little bit too big. So my next one is A5, which is about sort of 2/3 the size of this, which I like a lot. But I felt like I grew a lot in this sketchbook. I think I learned a lot about what I was trying to do in it. I think it's really important for artists who are near the beginning to take pride in finishing sketchbooks and doing lots of things and trying out a lot of things, even if a lot of them don't really work out. So I'll be back eventually, probably with my next sketchbook and with some other big long-term projects that I've been working on in the background. But until then, I hope you all have a great creative week. Bye for now.